It's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky. Come get high with me. That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
So they want me down and out. Hey, we ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. Down for the count, but the hound strike back.
Welcome back. Here we are again, another Whole Brother Live episode. This is the second one with me streaming, so hopefully I have improved this week. The intro should have just played. That's what I think happened. So I'll see after the fact, but hopefully that just played and this transition went smooth. So we got a lot to cover today, and I'm going to breeze through the Drake stuff and the Wendy Williams stuff, just for those that are vaguely familiar with it, because I have a much larger story I want to unpack today. And it kind of is going to be in this vein of talking about the sex lives of black men, or the process that boys go through coming into manhood as it relates to sex. And I think this will be a theme in coming weeks, kind of dealing with this from different vantage points, because interestingly enough, or not interesting, but obviously enough, we equate sex with men very frequently. We think about men's desire for sex, the strong desire, the sexual exploration as just part of manhood. And we live in a culture that's very sex driven. The porn industry is booming, or has been booming uh, since it's been introduced. Uh, so there's a lot of assumptions and just understanding of wanting to have the sex, but a lot of times we don't like talking about our thoughts about sex, not the fantasies, but our ideology around it, where we got these ideas from, and the consequences of our sexual decisions. That's the part that we don't end up talking about. We just want to talk about the fantasy. So I'm going to get into that topic a little bit more and explore it from a different vantage point, and just trigger warning, things will get a bit deeper when I do switch to that topic. But welcome back again. Thank you for joining me. The response was great to the first episode, and I ask that you that are listening continue to share the word about not just the podcast, but also the Whole Brother Mission, being a nonprofit connecting black men with therapists nationwide. Visit us at wholebrothermission.org.com.net, whichever one you like. Uh, so, Drake is in the news again. And there's not much additional to say here other than uh, what happened was he withdrew his petition and then filed a lawsuit against Universal Music Group. So Drake filed the petition, and for an extended period of time, everyone that was talking about that, I think, didn't understand the legal process behind it. And we've been talking about it for months as if he had already filed the lawsuit. And the online engagement, as far as those that are fans of his, they were telling us, that he is playing chess and we're playing checkers, and we just don't understand the money move he's about to make, and so on and so forth. And he's going to empower all these artists and change the system. And they painted him as a hero. And I did a video on this earlier this week explaining how sometimes when we're a fan of somebody or something, we will be generous in our interpretation of events, and maybe even deal within the realm of fiction rather than fact. And that's what I've seen a lot of fans of his do. So again, he filed a petition and then withdrew it, and then the next day filed the lawsuit. And he's suing Universal Music Group for defamation and saying a lot of things. There's a lot there. But the part that I just zoomed in on in my video earlier this week, and what I want to zoom in on now, is just my opinion is that a lot of this is emotionally driven. My perception of Drake is that he's an insecure person, deeply insecure, um, deeply invested in the validation and approval of others. And I do think that bears out in a lot of the people that are drawn to him. They have those same characteristics. And because of that, he's not handling taking this loss well. The loss of the rap battle. And I will say that I think that these legal proceedings are heavily based on him not adjusting well to a loss. Uh, is there a basis for the lawsuit? I guess we'll figure that out in court. But from my point of view, my opinion is that this is very much so an emotional reaction and a man that has not adjusted well to criticism, to adulthood, to fatherhood, and to stardom. That's just my opinion on it. But the thing I also said in my video earlier this week was just that we gotta stop. Uh, we gotta be able to separate our feelings from facts, right? So I just shared with you my thoughts about Drake, my opinion. I don't know if that is true, but that is my expert opinion on it, right? On my opinions on Drake. Uh, but the difference between that and what's going on online is these people that don't know him, people that are fans of him, tend to interpret his behaviors in such a generous way, and their like for his music seems to cloud their judgment or their assessment of the facts that are in front of us. Like, prime example, they said that he won a settlement after he withdrew the petition. They started saying online that he got a big settlement out of the Universal Music Group. That's not true. Uh, it's just simply not true. And I've also seen this with the Tory Lane stuff too. Like, there are people that were earlier in 2024 that were saying that he was about to get released, and some judge or jury ruled that his case should be overturned and that he was innocent, all because of a filing that went forth. And the filing said nothing of the sort, and that's not how those things work anyway. After he's already been found guilty, um, and that wasn't true, but it was a narrative really being pushed strongly online, and so much. And I'm talking particularly about Twitter/X. So much misinformation goes out there. It's really concerning because bold-faced lies are being pushed to thousands of people, and people are sharing it and supporting it. And I have this theory that I really wonder how many of the accounts are real. Are these the real opinions of people, or are these people with an agenda paying to have accounts say certain things, even though there's not a real person behind that account saying that? Because so often the craziest tweets always come from pages with no pictures on them. So I'm getting to a point where it's like I don't even trust the stuff that's going viral, because it's like someone who don't want to have their name attached to this is just paying to get the narrative out there. And that's kind of what we're dealing with now. It's just kind of fake engagement. So that's the Drake situation, in a nutshell. And it'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. So yeah, and Universal Music Group has responded to and is maintaining their position. So again, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. But I encourage you, go read the court documents. Reading is fundamental. Uh, Wendy Williams just kind of took the news by storm this week as well. So for those that don't know, she was a talk show host, and she gossiped about people for years on TV and on radio on WBLS. And uh, a lot of people don't like her because she talked about people's personal business and would spread, I guess, things that were true sometimes and sometimes weren't true. But recently, or in recent years, she got divorced or began the divorce process and taken off her TV show, and we started to see her less and less. And then this documentary came out about her, and then we started hearing she has dementia and she's incapacitated. And now I've seen an interview she did with The Breakfast Club and with Don Lemon, where she's basically with her niece, and they're pleading for Wendy to be set free, essentially. I don't know the details or how this works. And even when they asked the pointed question of how she got into this conservatorship that she's in now, it's almost as if she can't answer that question directly. Um, so in these interviews, Wendy has kind of hopped around on certain things, and they say, her and her niece say that it's because legally she can't say certain things, but she is trying to get public support to get free from this conservatorship that she seemingly was forced into against her will. She says she's living in basically a luxury prison with people that are much older than her. She doesn't have access to her money, and she's being mistreated. And uh, the most recent example of this that I think the masses will be familiar with is how Britney Spears was in the conservatorship initiated by her family. And the public came out of the woodwork in the masses to support her and start a movement to get her out. And then she eventually got out. And that's essentially what they're trying to do now with the hashtag Free Wendy to get her out of this. It piqued my interest because the argument is that she was mentally incapacitated. I will say, in both of those interviews, she did seem a little off. She didn't talk how she normally talked. Uh, a lot of repetition, a lot of using "excuse me" at the wrong time. Um, a lot of I say rambling and a a hint of incoherence. But again, they said that that was because she has to tiptoe around what she can and can't say. So she's live, trying to be careful what she says. Now, even with me feeling like things do seem a bit off with her, it doesn't seem like fully to the point of being incapacitated either. And it begs the question of how far is too far? What qualifies as a qualification to put someone in a conservatorship and assign them a guardian? And I think the argument from her and her niece is that even if she's not doing as well as she was, she is not incapacitated to the point where someone else should be handling her money and making decisions for her and not allowing her to leave this facility. And they were even saying, like, because she did these interviews with Don Lemon and the Breakfast Club, they may take her phone to keep her from talking to people. So she's kind of hostage. And, you know, I think it hit home for me too because of just understanding the racial dynamics of our country. Of course, this successful black woman with a pretty big talk show is now under the guardianship of some white woman. So it it because of the racial history of our country, there's that sensitivity to here we go with that mess again, and now some white person is handling this rich black woman's money. And it almost looks like a version of slavery where the systems are in place for somebody white to just swoop in and do stuff. It's just it's concerning on a lot of levels. So there is a GoFundMe that they've put out to support Wendy, um, and it is on the Breakfast Club AM Instagram and Charlemagne the God's Instagram, CTHAGOD, see the God. Uh, in the links on those pages, the website links, you can go to Wendy's GoFundMe, where they're trying to raise, I believe, about 200,000, so that she can uh, gain some level of independence because she doesn't have access to her own money, and so on and so forth. So, very interesting dynamic. We'll see where that story goes, but you hate to see black people that have built a large platform and success kind of just be snatched away like that, especially if it's questionable whether this is justified or not, or whether this was done under the right pretenses. And there's some contention around the woman who is her guardian, whereas there are arguments that she's done similar things before unjustly. I'm trying to look up her name. What did they say that woman's name was? Do I have it? One second. Yeah, Sabrina Morrissey is Wendy's guardian. SabrinaMorrissey. She is Wendy's guardian, and it seems like something unjust is being done. So we'll see uh, where that goes. So now I'm going to switch over to my more sensitive topic. I'm not jumping in on the sensitive part just yet, but I'll give you that trigger warning when I get to it. But there's this question of, do men need sex? I did a poll on my personal Instagram and on the Whole Brother Mission Instagram page. And I did a poll on my Twitter as well. Do men need sex or do men want sex? And I asked that question with one intention, but there are certain things that came out after that that have emboldened my point. So I asked this question, and then two stories came out. And one, I actually just found out before I stepped to the camera today. I saw something going viral on Facebook, and I was like, "Wow, I'm going to play this. I'm going to talk about this." Uh, but I asked the question, do men need sex or do men want sex? When I first started getting some votes coming in on Instagram, you can see who's voting. And at first, a lot of the men were voting that sex is a need for men, and a lot of the women were voting that sex is a want. And then as more votes started pouring in, it started mixing it up. Women and men saying it's a need, women and men saying it's a want. And both the poll on my personal Instagram at Maliek Blade and the Whole Brother Mission Instagram at Whole Brother Mission kind of landed at like half and half. So on one, 42% said it was a need, 58% said it was a want. And then on the other one, 48% said it was a need, 52% said it was a want. So that's interesting. I didn't notice that. On the first one, 42% said it was a need, and 58% said it was a want. On the other one, 48% said it was a need, and 52% said it was a want. Then on my Twitter, it was overwhelmingly voted as a want. So just a whole different outcome there. I asked that question for a variety of reasons, but I'm going to get back to why I asked that question after sharing some stories with you. I got two stories. One, this started to go viral on social after I did the poll. There's a gentleman who there's a video that started going viral where this guy, black guy, he pulls up to a drive-through. So you see the camera from the camera angle of maybe the drive-through associate. So let's just say it was Wendy's. The Wendy's person is clearly recording a camera out of their drive-through window to see who pulls up. He's a little further away from the window though. So this guy pulls up, greets the store clerk, and then she says that's inappropriate or something of that nature. His face looks shocked, and then he pulls off. But he's on camera the whole time. And you'll see in the video that he seems to be sitting in the driver's seat of the car with no pants on. From the camera, you can see his thighs. There was no nudity in the video, but you can just see his thigh. And then he drove off. As the story goes, some are alleging that he maybe is a regular at that restaurant and has done that before, and maybe that's why the associate was already recording because they knew what he was going to do. What I've also read, just gathering from people engaging online, is that it was at a store or restaurant called Bikini Beans, and my understanding is that it's like a coffee shop with a drive-through where women work there and they're kind of scantily clad. So seemingly he went up there with some type of fantasy, and rather than just looking, which is what I guess they do it for, he came with his pants down, which kind of crossed the line. So he got it. They chose to expose him by recording him. Now, what this kind of takes a ugly turn is apparently this man, after getting exposed, he went and took his own life. And also, as more has come out online, you're seeing these other pictures. Apparently, he was married and had children. So, some are describing it online as the horny taking over. And I'm 31, but apparently the term used now for like a super horny guy or a guy that may be heavily sexually driven or porn brain is a gooner. That's what they call him now, a gooner. So they're saying this guy was a gooner. He was going in, being driven by the wrong head, essentially, as we used to call it. Uh, and it's really unfortunate, that anybody lost their life. But again, as you process that story I just shared with you, remember my original question: do men need sex? I have another story for you. Now, when I first heard this, saw this going viral on Facebook, I um, just heard an 8-minute clip. But then shortly after, I found the whole clip. And because this is very sensitive information in someone's story, I want them to be heard in the full context. So I'm going to play this live that this young man did. His name is Jeremiah Williams. And he is talking about someone named Maurice Brantley. I don't even want to try to summarize it for you, but this is your trigger warning. This is Jeremiah Williams talking about some abuse that he experienced while a minor and the grooming that took place.
Anybody know I came out last, I want to say like...
Hold on. This Facebook thing is hard to rewind. Okay, here's from the beginning.
I'm gonna wait till a little bit more people join. Because people can state their opinions on the situation all they want. At the end of the day, nobody didn't have to fucking go through it but me. So, I could care less what anybody else has to say about the situation. This situation is something that I have been battling with for a long time, almost going on 7 years. When people start to ask me questions like, "Why are you just not coming out about the situation?" or "Why haven't you been saying anything?" or anything like that, you didn't go through it. Shit like that can ruin a person's mind, mental, all that. That shit was stripped away from me at 12 years old. You weren't in it, so you couldn't tell me what the fuck to do. You can't. So, with that being said, everybody can just keep their comments to themselves because you didn't go through it and you didn't have to go through it. With that being said, I would like for everybody to stop saying that I'm healed from the situation. I've seen a couple posts, people saying that I'm healed and stuff. I am not healed by the situation, but I am at peace with the situation. I can't say I'm healed with the situation because I'm just becoming like fully aware of what I actually went through. Like that shit fucking with your boy, no lie. But it happened. I went through it. So 6th grade, the beginning of 6th grade wasn't bad at all. I would say it was towards the middle of 6th grade when stuff started to get shaky. I felt as though I started questioning my sexuality. And, bullying was going on. A lot of that was going on during that time. So, I really didn't have any friends or nothing like that, or anything of that sort. So, I was always cool with teachers, anybody that could be in my corner, I wanted to be cool with. Maurice Brantley was one of them people. he was one of the people that I thought was in my corner during that time, and I felt as though I could trust him. Now we all obviously can see that I could not do that. First incident occurred during, like I said, during the middle of my 6th grade year. I was in the ISS room. It was just me and Antonio Maurice Brantley in the ISS room. We were joking and laughing. We were playing, and it was no context to what he did, but he grabbed my, as y'all can imagine what I'm thinking about, and I'm not talking about my rear area. I didn't know how to feel. I stood in shock, and I stood there. A couple minutes later, I did it back to him, and one thing led to another, and I ended up giving him oral sex in the classroom. That's the first incident. During this time, I was what you can say is rewarded by the things that I was doing. Me and another student, and this other student DM'd me last night when I came about my story. He asked me why I didn't tell him, because he was also cool with Maurice Brantley. Anybody that knows, that man bought me iPhone 8 Plus during the time I was in 6th grade. He bought me AirPods, food, anything. You can ask anybody that went to that school. He hovered over me like I was a golden child. I could never do no wrong. I could never get in trouble, because Maurice Brantley will always protect me no matter what. When I would get in trouble with teachers, they would send me to Mr. Brantley. Shit. So, yeah. Second incident. After a basketball game, my mom allowed Antonio Maurice Brantley to take me home after a basketball game because I asked her, could I stay? But she told me that I had to find a ride. Like I said, after the basketball game, Maurice Brantley proceeded to take me home, and before we stopped to get to his car, we stopped by the bathroom. He went in the bathroom by himself. He locked the door behind him. He then came out of the bathroom still unbuckling his pants while they were still down. I then proceeded to grope his groin area, and then we proceeded to leave the school. As we're leaving the school, on the way home, I gave him head all the way home. Yeah. So that happened. There was a third incident that occurred before everything went to stops, and it was one weekend. He talked my mom into thinking that he was going to tutor me. He picked me up from my house that morning, and we went back to his home in Swainsboro, where he was living at with his mother. And there was no tutoring done whatsoever. There was nothing but grooming and sexual activity the whole time. As we left his house, As we left his house, once again, the whole way home, I get in bed. During the time this shit was occurring, I didn't tell nobody because you don't really know what to do when shit like that is actually happening to you. It's like something that I can't even explain. Like you can't like nobody is prepared to go through anything like that, and I don't want anybody to ever have to go through something like that. Okay, fast forward to my 18th birthday. Mind you, the years have gone by. I have not had contact with this man. I have not texted him or anything. I can't say that I still had him on social media, on all my social medias. I still had him on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all that. So, fast forward, my 18th birthday approaches, and he messages me, and my mother has the messages. I still have the messages. I still can screenshot the messages. He texts me apologizing about what he did to me, and that he couldn't explain. He didn't know why he did what he did. And in my mind, it had been going on so long that I feel like the situation was okay. I did not respond in the way that people think I would have responded. I didn't respond in the way that I should have responded. I responded as if though I still wanted him to do things that he was doing to me. He quickly texted me back with, what do you mean, or whatever the case may be, and I left it at that. I didn't text him back. Fast forward, thank you for my best friend, because y'all, friends are, I'm thankful for the friends that I have, and I'm thankful for the people that I call my friends, because without my best friend, Saval, I don't even know if I would be able to even acknowledge the situation as it is. I thought I was at peace with the situation by not speaking on it or not thinking about it at all. As I stated in my Facebook post, my mama has questioned me. My phone stayed checked. My mama questioned me multiple times. Has anybody ever touched you? And my answer was always no, because in the back of my mind, I thought what was happening was right, because in my mind, it glorified my sexuality, because I didn't know what I wanted at the time, but that is what confirmed for me. That is what confirmed for me what I wanted. So I didn't think that it was wrong. Okay, with that being said, he texted me back and said, what do you mean I didn't respond, or whatever the case may be. Fast forward, me and Saval, we had stopped, we've always been friends on and off for a good while, but it was never no bad blood, never nothing like that. My mom knows Saval well. Saval has been in my house. My mom knows Saval is a good friend of mine. And one night, I was at Saval's house, and she went out the room to go in the kitchen, and I don't know what hovered over my mind to tell her that these things were occurring with Maurice Brantley, but I felt the need to tell her. Mind you, I talk about any and everything with Saval, so I felt the need to tell her. I end up explaining the situation to Saval as if, I would say in my opinion, as if it was funny. That's how I felt. I explained the situation to Saval. She quickly stared at me like I was fucking stupid and told me, Jeremiah, you were sexually assaulted. And explained to me that what happened was not right. In my mind, it immediately clicked, and she immediately told me that I needed to tell my mom. I called my mom on the phone, and I let her know. And honestly, I'm thankful that I don't delete messages, or I didn't delete the messages of him telling me that he was sorry for the things that he had done. But I ended up calling my mama, and I ended up telling her the situation. Lost for words. I won't wish that shit on anybody. I won't wish that shit on anybody. My mama felt as though it was her fault that I wasn't protected. And I can't explain how that shit made me feel. Because at the end of the day, we always think it's our mothers as mothers, but they're fucking human beings and they have feelings too. So, I heard the hurt in my mama's voice and I just instantly broke down. Because, what can you do, bro? What can you do when it's already done? There's nothing you can do when it's already done. So, yeah. Now, quickly fast forwarding to the whole coming out situation. Anybody know I came out last, I want to say a day before Thanksgiving last year. And, yeah, I just was going through a really rough time. I was really depressed. I didn't know what was going on. I let my mama know that I was feeling depressed. No, I did not get therapy. I did not want therapy because I felt as though I did not feel like I knew what the problem was. Whenever I was asked, well, what's wrong with you? Or why do you feel this way? Or why are you so depressed? Or why are you beating yourself up? Or why are you so stressed out? It was always I don't know. It was always, I don't know. And I want anybody to know that whoever asked me or whoever tried to check up on me and I told them I don't know, that's because I really did not know. I did not know I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know. It's not that I didn't want to talk to nobody. It's not that I didn't want to open up, but I felt as though my feelings were I did not know what was wrong with me. I just felt trapped. So fast forward, I ended up coming out. What I thought was the reason that I was so depressed and so stressed out and all this and just so beat up and just so worn out, at a young age. What are you so worn out for? It got to a point where I thought it was work. I'm 17. What the fuck is work stressing me out for? Yeah, I just thought it was so many other things, and I tried to make it so many other things because I did not want to face this situation. So yeah, end up coming out. That fixed nothing. It gave me a sense of clarity that I was able to be who I finally am, and I was able to just finally be me. Yeah. So that gave me a little bit of peace of mind, but quickly after, shit just went right back down. I decided that I wanted to move to Colorado, because I wanted a fresh start. I felt as though I did not belong in Statesboro. I did not want to stay in Statesboro at all. That's just how I felt. I'm sorry. So, yeah, that's just how I felt. During the time up to a couple months before me moving, me and my mama went through a very rough patch. This is not for me to. I'm not saying this as to degrade my mother or anything. We have a great relationship. I feel though is where I went wrong at and why we were bumping heads is because, like I said, I did not understand that my mom was human. I think that's really where I fucked up at. I was putting all the blame on her. This situation, everything, I was definitely putting the blame on her. And I shouldn't have at all. And I'm sorry. And I can't take it back. But it happened. Yeah. It took for me to stand on the front porch with my mama and bawl my eyes out for 35 minutes to understand where she was coming from. I had to understand that she's human. She got feelings too, and she also goes through things. So, yeah. still had, I let her know about the situation, like I said. And why I keep saying I'm at peace at the situation, I'm not healed, is because I'm so at peace at the situation. When I called my mom to let her know what had happened, I told her I did not want nothing to happen to that man. I told her, I'm letting you know this so you can get a sense of clarity of what I'm going through, because you've always asked what's wrong with me. So she needed that closing. Like, she needed that. So yeah, I told her not want nothing to happen to him. To this day, I said what I said. I do not want nothing to happen to that man. I just want him to be away from kids. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just want him to be away from kids. That's how I feel about the situation. That's what I say. Also, I am asking for Justin. I'm asking for everybody to share my story around, because I want him away from kids. A couple of people have got in my DMs and said that he was teaching at a middle school in Henry County. To my knowledge, or the last thing I saw that he was teaching in Augusta. So I don't really know. Police report has not been filed yet upon me, because I have not done it yet. I will be looking into it, and I will be doing it, and I will be doing what I need to do for me to heal from this situation and get better. I just thank everybody for sharing my story. I think for everybody just being in my corner. Just watch out, kids, man. People who you think are safe, like it's an evil world. You really don't know, bro. I want everybody to just be safe. And yeah, I just thank my family that I have y'all in my corner. And I'm sorry to anybody who I've hurt during this journey, because I can say I was a very angry person. I'm sorry to my family for the time I can't give y'all back, because family gatherings, I weren't there. I always told y'all no. I didn't want to be around y'all presence. So I just apologize to everybody. It's nothing that I can go back and fix, because we can't rewind time. But yeah, this is the situation at hand, and I just ask that everybody keep sharing my story, and I'm thankful for everybody, and I just hope y'all have a good day.
Wow. So there's a lot there, as you heard, and it would have been even harder if you were able to see it, just the emotion on his face. Um I play that again, bring it back to this question of, do men need sex? And you probably wonder why. Well, what's the relevance? Um, as someone who at one point was counseling close to 30 black men a week, um, leading the Whole Brother Mission and network of counselors that are serving and focusing in on black men, and research related to black men and why we're in counseling, and just staying in this world, and of course living life as a black man and seeing, what goes on. I do think it's really important to reframe certain assumptions that we have about sex. Uh, as I mentioned, a lot of the men voted that men need sex. Um, I'm trying to find a post. Um, let's see if I can find it. Where a man is essentially arguing. There it is. Monogamy. This is someone, of course, from Twitter. So someone posted, "What are your unpopular opinions that you stand firmly on?" And he said, "Monogamy isn't natural for men, and you can never convince me that it is. I'm a man, and I know what comes natural to me and most men. Not saying being with one woman is impossible, but it takes a conscious, willing effort." Um, and there have been similar posts that I've observed and similar sentiments in a variety of podcasts and posts where men say that sex is a need. Um, I was actually just talking to my barber recently too, and about this, and he was like, "Yeah, it is a need." And I was saying to him, I was like, "Well, you know, needs are things like water, food, and air. We need water, food, and air to survive." And he said, "Well, we need that too." Um, and I get some of the jest behind that. Like people really enjoy sex. It's you know, God made sex and made it to be good, and it is. So I mean, I'm not trying to be a prude about it, right, or a stickler. I get it that it's good, um, and I get most of us wouldn't exchange it for anything else in the world. However, there are so many negative implications for us as a community if we adopt or have this mentality that sex is a need for men. Here's why. When you say that something is a need, you can't do without it. Homeless people need food, and that is why we might look at them strangely, but we understand when they're sifting through the trash trying to find food because they need it to survive. Same thing with water, air. You'll do something strange or extreme to get the thing that you need to survive. And this mentality that it's a need is why we see the things that we see in terms of cheating, for example. Work with so many couples, heard about so many couples that sit in couples counseling where the man cheated and the woman's just sitting there crying, like, why? What did I do? What could I have done better? And the man can only sit there with a goofy or blank stare on his face. No, you're great. It's not that I was doing it to spite you. Men just have needs. And it goes into this idea of sexual discipline that we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about sexual discipline, I think, because many of us fear delving into that conversation because it'll require us to get control of something that one is might be difficult to control, but also that we don't want to control. Because there's that physical gratification and sometimes psychological gratification that comes from sex, we don't necessarily want to control it. And what I want to caution the men with is unbridled sexual desire, not managing that sexual impulse, can turn into these stories that I just talked to you about. When I talked about the Diddy situation when it first came out, I spoke about Diddy's the accusations made against Diddy in terms of his freak offs and Cassie and the other people in sex trafficking. uh, I framed it from the idea of a lack of sexual discipline, and a few people were like, "Well, this isn't about sexual discipline. He was just an evil person. He was demonic, as some people might say, or demonique, as 5-year foreign might say." But I framed it that way because, again, when you have these sexual desires and you don't manage them, you end up living them out. And then when you get more resources and power, those desires grow and more resources grow to facilitate those things. So you end up with a sex trafficking situation because you got this person coming from over here and that person coming from over there, and you're getting money involved and you're using your power and resources to create the fantasy that you want. And what's important is to get that under control and recognizing this idea that not everything that gets me horny, not everything that I'm attracted to needs to be pursued. And so often men have taught other men, and hip hop and culture has taught men, if you want it, if it gets you aroused, go after it. And that is the extreme danger here because we have adopted sexual recklessness as a part of masculinity. You exhibit your masculinity, your manhood, by throwing your stuff out in the street for whoever you want or whoever wants it from you, because the other side of this is a lot of us as men don't understand the idea of saying no to sex. So we have to have a much larger conversation and move toward action. So I'm not saying let's just talk, but let's take serious this conversation about sex, and please don't just move forward with the mentality that if I want it, I go after it. Because sometimes you may have desires that will get you or someone else in trouble or in hurt or harm or put them in danger. The same way that you have to manage other urges, someone frustrates you, you want to swing on them. I want to swing on you really bad right now, but I'm not because I'm aware of the consequences. Why do we take off the burden of responsibility and discernment and tact when it comes to sex? In all other areas of life, we recognize that we have to exercise some restraint. But because sex is so pleasurable, we act as if this is our opportunity to just have a free for all. But that same discernment and restraint is needed as it relates to sex too. I never forget, Dr. Umar talked about how, for the betterment of our community, some brothers need to know when to turn women down for sex. She may be throwing it at you, but if you recognize that she's not even in a good place mentally or emotionally, if there's other things she needs to deal with, you need to say no rather than just taking what you can get. I remember uh, the beginning of the end of a friendship with someone when I recognized that he was still trying to get sex from a woman that we both knew were was very broken and in a tough spot. He didn't care about the mental emotional state that she was in. He knew that she was ripe for the picking, so to speak, in terms of sex. And I don't applaud behaviors like that. There are a lot of men's friend circles that would applaud that, but I stand against it. So ended up losing that friend. But I do think as a culture we need more of that. Uh, you don't know what unbridled sexual desire will turn into. And I can say again from my seat as someone who has worked through a variety of trauma related to sex with other people, not to scare you, but what starts off as just, oh, I'm just a freaky dude, can turn into something much more than you would have even imagined. And I'll go as far as to say there are some people that find themselves in compromising positions related to their sexuality because they were so oversexed. They end up getting discontent with just the vanilla sex or the normal sex with just one woman. And it could turn into freak offs, it could turn into sexual activity with men. There are men who, there are, in our culture, there are couples that have open relationships, and there are men who participate in homosexual activity in the context of their relationship. And they identify as heterosexual men because this took place with the woman present. They won't do it if the woman's not present, but they have accepted and become okay with it when the woman is present. That is the reality of some people's relationships, whether you know it or not. I know that many of us might come from a certain environment where we're very traditional in our understanding, but just to bring you in the world we live in, there are a variety of things that go on in people's bedrooms, and people end up having labels that they decide for themselves. And although that may not fit within your paradigm of what straightness is, that is where some people find themselves. And I say this to you to say that there are men who wouldn't want to find themselves in that territory. And I would say the same way that you don't participate in certain things, don't try or experiment with certain things because you don't know what you might like. You don't know where it'll go, so you just choose not to even entertain the experimentation. That's where a lot of men are. They may not articulate it that way, but it's just, I'm not going to explore. I'm going to stick with what I know. That can apply in a lot of different areas. And I do think uh, it goes back again to making certain choices about what I will and won't do with my sex life before the opportunity presents itself. And that means having discipline, having values, and maintaining those values and being consistent with them rather than just going with the flow. So, on a larger scale, it has to be said men don't need sex. Men don't need sex to survive. A lot of men want it. But if you are the man that if you have a partner and if they are no longer having sex with you, you will just go have sex with someone else, that is a problem. That's not just you being straight, that's you lacking sexual discipline. And that can come back to bite you in a variety of ways. If your agreement as an adult was to be monogamous with this other adult and you can't honor that because you need sex, that's an excuse. Let's go a bit deeper. Let's just say, let's entertain the idea that this is biological, right? Men have to have that sexual release. Why isn't masturbation enough? If men need sex so bad, why not cheat on your wife or your partner? And if you really got to have that release, why not just masturbate? Why? For a lot of men, that wouldn't work. That's not a sufficient answer because it goes deeper than just it being a natural urge. For a lot of men, I've had to work through this with them. It's also psychological. It's also very much so ego. I need reassurance that someone wants me. So masturbation isn't enough. You have to go find someone that will choose you, even if it is just for the temporary thrill of sex. And that's a much deeper issue that you would destroy certain commitments that you've made, destroy your family, destroy your job, your career, your image, your reputation, your legacy for a nut. That's a problem. But men don't typically confront each other about this because a lot of us don't want to have the conversation because I don't want to confront you about sexual discipline in your life because I'm still trying to get my horniness under control, right? So the cycle just goes on forever and ever where folks don't have sexual discipline. And it's not that the women are going to come in and save the day. These are things that men need to develop in and of themselves and in terms of how we are presenting masculinity to one another and raising boys up, show a standard of discipline. But I don't even know if I maybe can count on one hand of a few black men that I know that had other men frame an idea of sexual discipline for them. Most of us were either taught to be a hoe or just told if you do it, wear a condom. That's most of the ideology we have related to this. I talk about in my book, Whole Brother Debunking Myths to Break the Black Family, that what we hear is like your uncle asking, how many girlfriends do you have? Not if you have a girlfriend, how many do you have? Because the assumption is you about to be out here. And that needs to change. Because again, unbridled sexual desire, a lack of sexual discipline, is an appetite that keeps growing and growing and growing. And it has no concern for who it hurts. You hear this young man crying because, again, an adult whose unbridled sexual desire has now turned toward children. I could go on and on about this one for a while. This is another whole topic, but it has opened up the conversation that will continue. Uh, if any of this has made a light bulb go off in your head, whether it's you who may have been an abuser, whether it's you who may have been abused like the young man, maybe it's you who was letting horniness cause you to do inappropriate things, approach a woman inappropriately, expose yourself, be too forceful or pushy. Or if you are in a committed relationship right now and you're worried about how your sexual desire may cause you to hurt someone that you care deeply about, reach out to the Whole Brother Mission, wholebrothermission.com. We have vetted therapists, black men and women, and people of other races, if you want that, to work through some of these things with you. If there's anything I said that has stood out to you, you can reach out and work with me directly. But I do think this is one of the most damaging issues in our community as men and as black people, is men's lack of sexual discipline. And because I would dare say, I think most of us probably still don't have the sexual discipline, the conversation just doesn't happen. Dads don't want to talk to their sons about sexual discipline because it's like, I didn't do too good with that. I'm not doing too good with that. So I don't want to be a hypocrite and try to tell you to have some discipline with what you do with your body. And that approach isn't helpful, I would say. Even if you didn't handle things properly in terms of your sex life, you can still articulate a vision that is more beneficial and helpful for your son or for the boys you're mentoring or your friends. We got to approach this differently. So let's start having the conversation rather than shying away from something that is destroying so many families. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.